Greetings, family. Welcome back to the second episode of the first season of 2022, Doing Your Thing with Disability. My name is Thomas Reed, host and producer of Read My Mind Radio, the podcast bringing you compelling people impacted by all degrees of blindness and disability. I'm excited to bring you today's episode, so I'm not going to say much as an introduction. However, I know you're going to dig what you're about to get into, so I'd like to encourage you right now to just go ahead and follow or subscribe to this podcast. I'm serious. What are you waiting for? Whatever app you're using to listen right now, there's something that says follow or perhaps subscribe. Hit that to make sure you don't miss an episode. I'll take it from there. Read.
My mind.
Read.
My mind.
Hi, I'm Adriana Mallozzi, founder and CEO of Puffin Innovations. We are creating hands-free access to consumer electronics for individuals with limited mobility in their upper extremities. My pronouns are she and her. I am a Caucasian woman with a round face, ear-length dark hair. I'm wearing a black t-shirt with the words "not impossible" written across the chest in white, and I am in a power wheelchair.
Why'd you wear that shirt today?
It really represents, I think, my attitude with regards to what I want to do in life. I've never been the type of person to take no for an answer. I'm realistic. I'm not a surgeon because I can't use my hands. It just really resonates with me and my attitude and what it means to be a proud disabled person, showing that nothing can really stop you from doing whatever it is you want to do in life.
Can you just summarize your experience with disability?
Sure. During the birthing process, I stopped breathing, and so the lack of oxygen caused brain damage. Hence, I have cerebral palsy. I'm a spastic quad, and I use a power wheelchair. CP varies so much. It manifests in so many different ways that you would never know from one person to another that they have the same diagnosis.
The diagnosis is what it is, but the person is who they were in their past, who they are in the moment, and who they become in the future. In each of those periods in time, there are things that impact the person's way of thinking. Two things stand out about Adriana's past that influence her belief in what is possible.
I am a product of immigrants. So I grew up going to Italy to visit family. I still have first cousins there. Growing up, we would go spend the summers to see my grandparents. Travel was a big part of my life.
Adriana's mom worked as a real estate agent and travel agent.
Just because it gave her the flexibility she needed to having a young family, especially for me as a child with a disability. She'd always be running around, having to take me to PT or OT or whatever. She would either win a trip for two, and then she would add my sister and I, and we'd get to travel. So we went on cruises, and we got to go to Bermuda when we were young. So I think it was just very inherent. It was in our blood. Traveling is just something that we love. My sister has made it into a job where she gets to travel around the world and experience different cultures.
That's her little sister, Michaela, professional dancer and 4-time Emmy Award-winning host of her own travel show, Bare Feet with Michaela Mallozzi. I guess traveling without shoes is dangerous. I don't think that's what she's doing. Traveling as a power wheelchair user comes with some specific challenges.
When I travel, especially overseas, I don't bring my power chair just because it's not as accessible in other countries, and it's just easier to have a manual chair. Most of the country is not wheelchair accessible, especially my own family's home. My grandparents' home, it's hundreds of years old. It belonged to my great-great-grandparents, and just not accessible. So I would travel with my manual chair, and when I'm in my manual chair, I literally can't do anything myself.
Contrast this with her first experience taking her power chair overseas.
Also, the first time I flew overseas without a family member, I brought my PCA with me. I had to figure out all the logistics on my own. That was the first time that I had ever done that in my life, and it was amazing. They really put a lot of thought into design with accessibility in mind. You know how here the elevator buttons are all literally at the door? Over there, common sense, if you use a wheelchair, you really can't reach those buttons by the door because your footrests are in the way and you can't get close enough. In Germany, all the buttons are on the side, on the wall, so you can easily reach them. They also have not only a button to call the elevator at the door itself, but they also have freestanding posts, so you can angle your chair in any direction and hit it however you can hit it. They did the same thing with automatic door openers. And so I was so independent when I was there that I literally dreamt about being back there when I got back home.
Aware of the problems that power chair travelers experience, Adriana had a plan.
So we bring a big roll of that wrap, like how they wrap pallets, that plastic. As soon as I get out of my chair, we put anything that are external to the seat of my chair, we put it in the seat of my chair and then literally wrap my chair. And so that has worked.
On the way to Germany, at least. On the return trip, as soon as they finished wrapping the chair, Adriana and her PCA were told to unwrap it because the chair needed to be tested. It was taken, but no one would speak with Adriana or her PCA. Nervous about missing their flight and subsequent connection, they finally learned of the problem.
They're like, yeah, your chair tested positive for explosives. We had to wait for the police to come, and then they were like, you need to take the battery out. And I was like, you can't take the battery out. Like, you don't take the battery out. They literally tried to tear out the battery. Luckily, they couldn't figure out how to open anything, but they had snapped pieces. So there were broken pieces in the seat of my chair. It was like they were clawing to get to the internal electronics of my chair. I think it would have been worse if it wasn't wrapped.
The dream of independence for people with disabilities often includes some nightmares.
They put my chair on the lift from the gate of the plane to load it down below, and the person who was loading baggage, he was literally throwing and chucking things on top of my chair. And I was having a heart attack because I could see it through the window. And I was like, oh my God. We definitely took pictures and video. My chair was a little broke, like it wasn't working properly. And these chairs are 500 pounds, so it's not like it's easy to push it.
The joy and pain of traveling as a disabled person. The second influential component affecting Adriana's belief of what is possible, early exposure to technology.
It was my OT who introduced me to a piece of technology that allowed me to use the computer to do anything for the first time independently. And this was back in about 83 or 84. So I was about maybe 7, 8 years old. All I did was type. I typed my name, maybe some numbers, but just being able to do that and being able to do something by myself for the very first time ever in my life, it really hit me at that moment. Wow, technology is going to be the key to my independence.
And then there's the DIY, do-it-yourself attitude.
My father was a carpenter, and so I would always see him build. I think I got that problem-solving sort of mentality. Most people with disabilities, we have to adapt on the fly all the time. We have to figure out ways of doing things that the average person does not. And we always have to be at least 2 to 3 steps ahead because there has to be a plan B, C, D, and E, right? In case X, Y, and Z goes wrong.
And when they go wrong, understanding the need to advocate for yourself.
My parents really had to struggle financially to get me what I needed, like just basic things that insurance considered luxuries, like a bathing chair. I can't sit up by myself. So until I got that chair, I had to lay at the bottom of the tub. My mom would be really creative and get pool toys, like neck pillows or floaties, just to make me comfortable. So I wasn't banging against the sides of the tub or hurting myself. My power chair I got when I was about 8 years old. Me being able to be independent and move on my own was a luxury, according to the insurance company. They just had to find ways for me to get what I needed. And I'm really grateful that I had parents that did that.
Is that still the situation with insurance where they treat those things like luxury?
There are places still in the United States where people have to still fight for it. And yes, they still consider it a luxury. But I'm lucky to be in the state of Massachusetts and have the benefits and have not had to struggle as much as an adult in a different state to get the equipment that I need. But there are people in this country that still have to fight, that still get subpar equipment simply because insurance won't cover the actual equipment that would be more suitable for that person. I don't understand how people that work in the insurance business or those companies can have policies that allow that to happen. These are human beings, and to treat human beings in that way, I just don't understand.
The more you know how much it benefits a person, the more difficult it is to accept that it happens.
When I was older, let's say my mid-20s, was the first time that I had technology that I was able to turn on the lights, to change channel on the TV, to open my door to my apartment. That was huge for me. For the average person, it just sounds so basic. And these things excited me, and I was so happy. And I was in my mid-20s, and that was the first time I was able to do any of that by myself.
It doesn't sound basic to me. Adriana and I met as a result of inaccessibility. It was December 2020, and I was trying to make sense of the social audio app Clubhouse. I accidentally hit a button that started up a room. Honestly, I freaked out. I had no idea who was going to join. While searching how to quickly close the room, someone popped in. Shout out to Daniel from Singapore. We got to talking, and then Adriana came into the room.
I joined Clubhouse December of 2020 when everyone was locked down. Initially, I was just checking out all the tech rooms and getting a feel for what was on there.
December 2020 was still considered early in Clubhouse time. There were a fair number of people using the app, even though officially it was in beta. There was a lot of everything, good conversation to scammers, and definitely inaccessibility. While in a room with some discussion taking place about disability, Adriana didn't like what she was hearing.
Special needs and differently abled and handy-capable and all those god-awful euphemisms instead of the actual word disability. Okay, this has to stop. Let's do a room about disability and about language.
That room led to the creation of a club.
I was trying to come up with something clever for a club name, and I'm like, what do we want to call it? I read, 15% of the world's population has a disability. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to call it the 15%. And then it sounds really exclusive and cool as well. and people will be like, oh, what is this 15%, right? Like, I want to be part of the 15%.
There were some really great conversations throughout the rooms, from those hosted by the club to those from other members. We as a club, along with some cool allies, shout out to Glenn with 2 N's, played a big role in advocating for improved access to that app, making certain to voice concerns from the perspective of all users with disabilities. Literally, all we wanted was to be included in the conversation. Are you socially responsible?
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means.
It's true, no one knows what it means. Not even me. I just think it sounds cool. It's time to announce the winner of the February Socially Responsible Instagram giveaway. Last time, I told you all about Annie, a friend of the family who wanted to come on board and help manage the Read My Mind Radio Facebook and Instagram pages. Last time, Annie was under the weather. While I knew the sun would come out, I was hoping to get her on the podcast and ask her, Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Dun, 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 dun. Ow! I'll stop before Annie decides to get her gun. I'm here all week, ladies and gentlemen. The winner of the February Read My Mind Radio Instagram giveaway is, congratulations, at Malik_Acid. Enjoy your very own Read My Mind Radio coffee or tea mug. Now, back to the episode. What was your first experience with having to advocate for yourself?
I liked pushing boundaries, but I was also very shy. So growing up, my teachers didn't even know I could speak because I was so shy. I started opening up more when I was in middle school and high school. It was freshman English, and I had to write a paper. I decided to write about how, as someone with a disability who took all honors classes, I had a one-to-one aide to help me turn pages or write notes for me, etc., who didn't understand English.
Adriana literally would have to spell out things she wanted the assistant to write. Meanwhile, the teacher is moving on with the rest of the class. Could you imagine how frustrating that would be for a 14-year-old? She decided to write about it.
I knew once the essay was handed in and I would go down the halls, I knew all the teachers knew. I knew the administrators knew. And they were all talking about it. And I think that was my first official myself advocating for myself.
What lessons did you take away from that?
It felt good, actually, to cause a ruckus. It was really obvious that they underestimated me. Even though I was in honors courses, I think it was really clear that because I was shy, because I never really spoke loudly or did anything like that all of a sudden I wrote this paper. They had an insight to what was really going on in my mind and how I was really feeling about the situation.
After being assigned a new aide, she knew her words could make a difference. In her senior year in high school, Adriana wanted to work on the yearbook. She knew she could. Everything was computerized at this point. But she was told she couldn't.
Because it's on the 3rd floor and the elevator doesn't go there. After 4 years of being at that high school, I had no idea that there was even another floor that I had no access to. Someone that I knew that was on the school paper decided to interview me about it. A year or so later, they fixed that.
Years later, Adriana found herself working as the editor of a newsletter at the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission.
It was called The Consumer's Voice. And up until when I took it over as editor of it, it was mostly just regurgitation of what was on the DOJ website or what have you, and not really the voice of the people. I said, we're changing that. They allowed me to assemble a group of individuals who were involved or who were consumers of the voc rehab. And people were also allowed to submit their own stories. If they wanted to share an experience, both negative or positive.
At least that was what she thought. It wasn't until one consumer sent in a not-so-nice letter about their experience that tested the policy. It landed her on a call with the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, defending the consumer.
And I said, excuse me, but this is called the consumer's voice. It is a factual story. No one is being called out by name in this story. We went back and forth a little bit and it got published.
Why was the idea of having the voice of the consumer being heard, why was that so important to you?
It would be an injustice. It was called the consumer's voice. And not having the voice of those people in that publication, it was wrong. It was so wrong on so many levels, and I didn't understand how you could call it that when you didn't actually broadcast those voices and those stories. And so it was really important to me to have that and to be true to what the name stood for.
In her job at a day rehab center, in charge of coordinating wheelchair evaluations, she found herself often advocating on behalf of others. Sometimes that just means informing people of the process and their rights.
So most people don't know this, but when you're wheelchair shopping, it is your right to test drive multiple chairs, as many chairs as you want, different brands. It's just like buying a car. You spend most of your time in this thing, and it needs to be right for you.
Advocating on behalf of another person can be tricky, especially when you sometimes share medical professionals. Like the time an OT didn't provide a consumer with a chance to test multiple chairs.
So I knew this person both professionally as well as someone who had helped me in the past to get equipment. And so I called her and said, hey, I really think that he should try this other kind of chair. I think he would benefit from it. And she says, well, I didn't think he needed to try anything because he has a cognitive disability. I was thinking at that moment, God, you are so lucky that his mother did not just hear you say that. And you're also so lucky that I could not reach through this phone and throttle you.
I'm a big fan of this part of Adriana's personality. But fortunately, for all involved, she has a really good head on her shoulders.
We spoke for a while and convinced her that we should have another wheelchair about. We did it at the clinic, not on site.
Mind you, this wasn't in an official capacity. She took off to attend the eval in order to make sure that this person received the appropriate service.
Prior to using this chair, he would crash into things all the time at the center. In this chair, he drove like a pro. It was also a standing chair, so he was able to stand and reach. His mom was in tears, and it was just the most amazing, and I was so happy that he was able to get what he actually needed and what best suited him. The OT came over after and apologized. I've always been that type of person where I want to try to figure out how to make things better, how to make things easier for other people, not just myself, and how can tech do that?
Let's go to another form of your advocacy, your natural interest in technology, your empathy. I see all of that combined to make the beginning of Puffin Innovations. Take me through the beginning of Puffin.
Right after I graduated college, I would send out two different kinds of resumes. The typical resume that you would send to a company. And then I had a resume called an assistive tech resume. And I would list all the things that, I was experienced in using and doing. And I would apply to all these companies that I had used their equipment and I looked up to. It was a dream of mine to work for a company that made assistive tech.
Adriana had no entrepreneurial ambitions. She just wanted to work for an assistive technology company that was serving people with disabilities. That was until she received word about an event.
MIT was looking for people living with disabilities who had an idea, who had a solution to a problem that they themselves are experiencing. I was like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. I get to go to a hackathon. At that point, I had never been. I was just on cloud nine because I was like, oh my God, I have this opportunity to go to MIT, hang out with all these geeky people, and geek out together and just be around tech all day.
She, along with about 15 other applicants, was selected to participate in the hackathon. Prior to the event, a dinner was held to give the co-designers, that is the MIT coders and those with the ideas, a chance to meet and connect with one another.
It's kind of like speed dating. The students will go around and meet each of the co-designers and find more out about what it is that you want to do. This group of students came to me and they never left. And it was a match made in heaven. Literally, they had their laptop. We were looking up parts. We were already figuring out what we needed to make this happen.
Each team had an opportunity to request parts and technology prior to the hackathon.
Luckily, there was this person he is now a Puffin advisor. He had this big chest of parts. And if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have been able to build it at all because we didn't get any of the parts that we had ordered. These students were amazing. They really listened to what I had to say. I think that's what made our team so successful, is that we were willing and able to take each other's input and put that together and put it in a way that worked. We never dismissed anyone's idea or anything. We ended up making a working version, and I think that's why we won first place. We got so much press. We were even in the New York Times, which was amazing.
Already motivated to get this product out to others who wanted more independence, Adriana began receiving emails from people around the world asking that very question. She was thinking about patents and funding while the students went on to complete their coursework.
A good friend of mine who happened to be writing her thesis, she was getting an MBA back in 2016, and she was writing a thesis on hackathons. She said, you had a successful hackathon. I want to interview you. When we were done, she was like, what's stopping you from doing this, from making it into a real thing? That was really her and I taking the time to just look up applications, learn what was out there, and apply to all these funding opportunities.
The idea that began after receiving an email in 2015 started to look more like it was turning into a real business.
It just all fell into place in 2017. We got a $200,000 grant from the VA. It was April Fool's Day. I kept looking at the email. This is real. We just got $200,000. It was like the most surreal experience because we've never done anything like this before. Then we got into Mass Challenge, and that really propelled us forward because we didn't have space. We didn't have anywhere to go to work on this.
The Mass Challenge is a business accelerator program in Massachusetts. In addition to funding and networking opportunities, they provide access to production space and other resources, including equipment and people.
The people that would walk in and out of there were just people in the high-tech industry that you would never otherwise ever meet in your life. We also, as a result, something that happens here in Boston called Inbound that HubSpot runs. As being part of Mass Challenge, you got free tickets to Inbound. And that year, Michelle Obama was the keynote speaker. We got to go, and it was just the most amazing thing ever.
Just when things are going really well, pandemic, COVID-19. Unlike other tech companies that were able to thrive during the pandemic, Puffin is a little different.
It's a physical product. Our device is actually a mouth-operated wireless input device. It's just a fancy way of saying it acts as a mouse. So for people like myself who can't use their hands, they could pair our device with any Bluetooth-enabled device, so like your computer or your cell phone, tablet, and then have full access to that device. I know several people who don't even have a mobile device, especially back when I started this, because they physically can't interact with the touchscreen. We also have an app that goes with this product, but it interacts with the device. It's really hard thing to get parts that are not from overseas. And that's where a lot of our components were coming from. We were down for a good long time. But now we're ramping back up again.
Helping to build up some of that momentum was winning the ServiceNow Digital Workforce Challenge, along with acceptance into the Verizon for Good Accelerator program.
Which is super exciting because we get to work with these tech experts from Alley and Verizon. A big part of our device is the portability, the connectivity of it, so being wireless. And so having this opportunity to work with a communication giant like Verizon and leader in wireless technology, which then we will be able to incorporate in our device, is going to be pretty amazing and really bring it to the next level.
Adriana says similar products on the market haven't seen much in the way of innovation because there's little competition.
They have no reason to actually change it. So we're changing it.
By incorporating artificial intelligence or machine learning.
I wanted this device to help with that, to recognize, hey, this person is having a little more difficulty in doing this or that, or is struggling with moving in certain ways. So let me adjust the sensitivity, or let me adjust the pressure that is needed to go in this direction, but not in this direction.
By the end of the program with Verizon, Adriana would like Puffin to have a product ready for sale in a beta phase in order to generate user feedback. By the way, the name Puffin is like a shout out to the bird of the same name. The device's mouthpiece resembled the bird's beak. That beak, you can say, is a form of assistive technology. It enables them to carry food to their baby back at the nest. Doing her thing with disability is what separates Puffin from other solutions. Adriana not only understands the value for herself, but seems just as excited for what Access brings to others.
I don't know what I'd do without accessing my cell phone. I can control everything with my phone now. I can control the TV. I can control the lights with my phone. I can do my banking. I can do my shopping. I can read a book, make phone calls, etc. You can literally do everything with a mobile device. So for people with disabilities, if you have access to your mobile device, you literally have access to the world. And that's what's really important to us. It's giving people the opportunity to have access to things that they otherwise would not have access to.
How do I say this? Let me see. Because of all the things that you do, your willingness to share and help others, the way you do your thing with disability, you, Adriana Mallozzi, are an official member of the Read My Mind radio family. Welcome to the family, Adriana.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a member.
So how can people learn more about the Puffin? How can they learn more about you, social media stuff, all of that?
So you can find more about Puffin at puffinno.com. Puffin, like the bird, and then INNO.com, or Puffinno on all social media platforms. If you are on Clubhouse, come and join the 15% club. For me, it's just Adriana Mallozzi is my handle on all social media platforms as well.
I started to give credit to the lack of access within the early version of the Clubhouse app for my chance to meet and get to know Adriana. It's like giving credit to inaccessibility, poor treatment and service for the strong advocacy, problem solving, or management skills that you'll find among people with disabilities. Nah, I'm not crediting the negative. The energy we each give off works to bring people in and out of our lives. Adriana and I were both on the Clubhouse app, simultaneously trying to figure some of the same things out. In fact, some of the same access issues that impact her were impacting me as a voiceover user. It wasn't disability specific. Perhaps that's something I needed to hear. I may have been seeking that without even knowing. Maybe you listening here today needed to hear the words on Adriana's shirt. Not impossible. That's really an energy that I personally want for anyone listening. The energy I want for myself. Yes, we can dream big. I just want to hear more from those achieving without having to compromise any part of themselves. I'm tired of conversations about overcoming CP, blindness, or disability in general. I'm here when you want to talk about society overcoming its needs to put up barriers, its inaccessible websites and technology, or unwillingness to hire, give opportunities to, or in any way include the disabled community. I'm here for conversations with people like Adriana, who want to talk about pursuing goals, making dope, enabling technology. I'm here when you want to talk about doing your thing with disability. And you know where to find me, right? That's wherever you get podcasts. If you're on Facebook and Instagram, that's at Read My Mind Radio. And on Twitter, it's at TSRead. Or slide on over to readmymind.com. And you can find transcripts for our episodes and more. Just make sure you remember, that's R to the E. I.
D, and that's me in a place to be.
Like his last name.
Peace.